Story time. Several years ago, during a lunch and learn session with a successful VP at Google, the question came up. What made you successful? And the answer shocked me so much, it stayed with me. I typically don't remember all the answers, but this one stayed. And the answer she gave? The expectations. For a hardworking, ambitious, Google Sheet crunching graduate that I was, this answer was not what I was expecting. It was a bit too fluffy, a bit polished. Something was off. It was definitely not the answer to how to become successful. And so over the next months, I mewed over it. Whenever I was disappointed or angry or frustrated, I thought, okay, what's going on here? In my personal life, in my working life. And after a couple of months, it dawned on me. It was about the expectations. Setting the right expectations, managing the right expectations, but it was about the expectations. Hear me out. Maybe in your day-to-day, your colleague approaches you really upset. Hey, why didn't you involve me in a decision? I thought I was impacted. Why didn't you talk to me? Or in your overall work, when you and your boss disagree how you see your priorities. Or in your personal life, when you agree to have a date night at 6 p.m. and you're ready at 5:55, but your partner takes an hour to wrap up his work, he's more flexible with his time. This one is still painful. Anyways, it boils down to the expectations. So today, we are going to talk about 5 questions that will help you set the right expectations. If you're someone who just gets the work, dives into this without asking any questions, we're going to help you. If you're someone who asks 10,000 questions to the frustration of your manager and your colleagues, we're going to help you. Today, 5 questions and some real-life examples from my time at Google. We want some practice. My name is Kinga, this is Press Pause. Let's go. We're back, and today we're going to work with a practical example. You're new to a job and your manager just came back to you saying, hey, could you help me put together a sales forecast for the quarter? What do? Question number 1, when? Let's talk about time commitments. You can ask one of the 2 questions. What's the deadline? Or how does it stack against current priorities? You basically want to get the feeling, is this the most important thing? Drop everything else, focus on this now? Or can it wait? You have other things on your plate, so finish those first and then dive into this task. And the example I love giving here is, let's assume your manager says, I need it by Friday. And so what do? You send it on Friday midday. Or if you love the adrenaline, on Friday end of day, 5 minutes before deadline. Right? Want to give yourself and your team enough time. So the question you want to ask is, when do you want to review it? You want to make sure that your colleagues, your manager, have enough time to make any changes. Let's be real. When was the first version good enough? Typically it's V1, V2, V final, V official, V really final, whatever you call it. But typically it takes a couple of times, and especially when you're new to something, you will make mistakes. So you want to make sure that you give yourself, your team, enough time to make any changes, and you don't spend the night before a deadline changing everything just because you didn't factor it in. Question number 2, what? What's the high level structure? Does your manager have something in mind, or is it a blank canvas? Whenever you're approaching a new task, do it in steps. Step 1, high level structure. Step 2, details. You get a new task, spend a couple of minutes outlining the skeleton. What's the story? What are we trying to say? If you're working on a slide deck, honestly, even putting slides with the titles and making sure that everyone's aligned on the story, on the structure, on how it flows. And then once it's aligned, go into the details. This way you make sure that you spend your time and effort where it's actually needed. And probably you can also narrow your focus, because you know some things will be out, they are not needed. And the example I love giving, which happened to me so many times, is you get a new task from your manager, put together a sales forecast, you say, sure, let me do it. You don't ask any questions, especially if you're new to a team or if you're young, you just don't want to show that you don't know. So you go to your desk, you open your laptop, and honestly, you don't know where to start. You don't know if it has been done in the past, is it just a short analysis or something longer, and you feel a bit overwhelmed and you don't want to show that you don't know. And you're probably going to spend so much time, so much effort, and you're going to frustrate your manager because your first answer won't be great. Question number 3, why? And it doesn't have to be this nagging why. It can just be a curious why. A why that will help you frame the story and the recommendation. Think about it, you might be working with the same numbers, but the story and your recommendation will completely change depending on the why. So your manager comes and says, we need a sales forecast. Now this why can be, we want to compare it against last year. Or we want to see how the competition is doing. Or we want to understand if we have enough supply. Or if we need to change something in the budget. Every single of those whys will completely change your work. Question number 4, who? Who is the target audience? Or who are you doing it for? And it will guide how much detail and how much color do you actually need to provide. I like using it in combination with question 3 because it gives me just a broader picture of the overall task and I know what's going on. So let's assume sales analysis. Do we need it for senior leadership? Maybe just an update. How are we doing against the target, against last year? Is just a short, high-level snippet. Or do we need it for internal team meeting? Maybe we need it to revise the budget. Things are not going that well, and so we need to have a couple of different simulations. Again, completely different level of detail that will be needed for 2 different groups. Question number 5, how? How is your secret weapon in this toolkit? How will help you get the job done? And there are a couple of questions in this section, so let's go through them. Is there a template? Have we done something similar in the past? Who has done it? Are there any sources, any data sources that I can use? What should be the first step? If you have no idea where to start, how will help you. And if I've learned something is that most of the times you do not have to reinvent the wheel. Often there is similar work that was done in the past, or you have someone on the team who is really great in something. Think about it. There will be always someone who is great in spreadsheets, or someone who is great in making presentations, or writing excellent emails. So reuse their work. Sure, if you know that this is your strength and you have a great idea, go and create something new. But for most of the situations, just reuse something that worked in the past. It will save you time and your manager will be happy. And a pro tip here that I have is, as you go through the experiences, save really great work. If you see a great email, great document, great analysis, save this work. And this means that as you'll be approaching new tasks, even more complex ones, you never start from scratch. You simply take work that worked in the past, looks great, and you just change it to fit whatever you want to say. It will save you time, your manager will be happy, your team will be happy as well. And that's it for today. And a reminder, let me know as you look back at your last week, you think about your frustrations when you were angry, disappointed, how often was it due to unclear expectations or something else? I'd love to hear from you. And see you next week.